Everyone. It's social distancing with the chamber or happy hour with Hammer, depending which title you prefer. As always, our CEO, Glenn Hammer here. Glenn, we're joined by a special guest tonight. You might remember him from working in the trenches for Senator McCain. Now he's the head honcho at the Arizona Bankers Association. Paul Hickman, welcome to the show.
Thanks, Garrick, and thanks, Glenn. How are you this afternoon?
Great to be here. Great to have you on. Glenn, we're going to kick it over to you. Yeah. We'll kick it over to you. Glenn, why don't you say some nice things about our guests and then get us started?
Well, Paul Hickman has been a great public servant for the people of Arizona for many years. And we got to know each other many moons ago when he worked for Senator McCain. And, for the past batch of years, has done really a great job running the Arizona Bankers Association. And, right now, Paul's the man of the hour. According to the Department of Treasury, soon, I don't know if I'll say tomorrow, but soon, the Paycheck Protection Program is supposed to launch, which is the largest small business program ever launched by our federal government. And, we've got thousands of small businesses in the state of Arizona that are hoping to participate in this program. And Paul, I just want to thank you. You've done a great job of getting the information out as it has become available by the U.S. Department of Treasury.
Well, thanks, Glenn, and thanks for having me on, and thanks for your kind words. It's been a pleasure to be your friend and know you for so long. When you've been a public policy stalwart for more than one Arizona politician, and Glenn and I actually went to the association world kind of at the same time. I think he beat me out the door by maybe a year or two to the Arizona Chamber.
Yeah. I timed it with the Great Recession, which, I wouldn't advise that to anyone really wanting to go into the association world. But I learned a lot of lessons that are actually applicable to today's situation.
Yeah, I'm sure you did. I'm hearing from my colleagues that were on this side of the desk back then that a lot of this is reminiscent of that.
Yeah. A lot of education, a lot of nervousness out there. But that's where groups like the Arizona Bankers Association, the Arizona Chamber of Commerce and Industry, our roles are important here to get good information out and to provide good guidance. So, when we have right now this, this PPP program, as they say, this is a really important discussion because a lot of small businesses are relying on this to keep them going at least for the next couple months.
Absolutely. So what can I tell you about it?
Well, let's start. Are your members ready to start processing applications?
I think some are. A lot we're waiting on the guidance that we got within the last 90 minutes from Treasury. I don't even think it's on the Federal Register yet. I think it's on their website. It'll be on the Federal Register's website probably tomorrow. They've waived comments, so they're making it immediate, immediate. And there'll be varying degrees of preparedness, and there'll be varying degrees of nuance in terms of how they process these applications. Also, I should say, it is not every bank in Arizona that can start lending this money tomorrow. It is only SBA lenders. About half of the banks in Arizona are SBA lenders. And I think about half of the credit unions, although I don't want to speak for them. And there are some non-bank lenders on that list as well. Mm-hmm. They are qualified and they have delegated authority to make these loans. The non-SBA lenders that want to make these loans, the SBA and the Department of Treasury have said they are going to create an expedited process for them to get certified to make those loans. And they want to roll that process out by Monday. Whether they meet that goal or not remains to be seen. And how many of that cohort want to do this remains to be seen. We don't know that either. We also don't know how many of the SBA lenders here want to do this, but in my informal survey suggests most do, most in Arizona. So hopefully that helps.
Paul, do you have a sense of the demand for participation? I mean, we're just getting inundated by requests from businesses with with requests for information about this program and how to apply. But does that sync up with what you're hearing from your members?
Glenn, in terms of small businesses that want to take advantage of this program, is that what you're asking me?
Yes.
Yeah. This is there are some forecasts that this $350 billion may not last through the weekend. I think it probably is likely to last 10 days, just because I think there may be a choke point in terms of the processing of the applications. But I could be proved wrong. There was a smart expert on CNBC whose name I don't know that was on our daily coronavirus call yesterday. Somebody on the call pointed out that the expert on CNBC was reporting that it would probably run out by the end of the weekend. So I don't want to predict that. I think it'll go a week, 10 days, maybe longer. It depends on. Part of it depends on the efficiency of the application process.
Well, I'll say this, Paul. If this is the case, I mean, this is going to, in my opinion, necessitate Congress to get back and to extend this, because I don't believe you could go out there, sell a program to the American people, and cut it off on a almost first come first serve basis. There's a lot of trust in the federal government in getting this one right, and it was sold by Treasury and others as very easy to obtain. It should be very quick, and if goalposts are being moved or it's not sufficient, it's going to, in my opinion, have to be tweaked very, very quickly.
Well, you're right, and it's going to be difficult to do that. And as you recognize, this will require a congressional appropriation. This isn't something that the secretary can move money around on. And as you know, Congress is not slated to go back until April the 20th, and that may be ambitious given the trajectory of the outbreak of the pandemic. So we'll see. There may be a pause, Glenn. I don't want to predict that either, but I could see that happening too. Now I know that Secretary Mnuchin and the administrator can't think of her name.
Yeah,
Joe
I
Vita.
know you're.
Yeah, I'm talking about Joe Vita. Strongly suggest that if this runs out quickly, that they will go back to the well. But again, I've got to emphasize it takes congressional action, and Leader McConnell was saying yesterday at the end of the day that they were going to wait on a phase 4, that his caucus in the Senate were not eager to rush back into a phase 4 right away, even though we all know it's being written.
Well, I'll be happy to drive any member of Congress that needs transportation back to Washington, D.C. with 6 feet of distance. We would have to go in our minivan because we can't leave small business in the lurch, period, end of story. Not after, every chamber in America, including ours, has been out there selling this program. So the federal government has to get this right. This is not optional. And our members of Congress, if they have to do phase 4, they're going to have to do phase 4. And, and I know, I understand where Senator McConnell is coming from. We don't need phase 4 with lots of side efforts that have nothing to do with the crisis, but our national legislature is going to have to be nimble as businesses are falling by the wayside by the nanosecond.
Yeah, I totally agree. But I am concerned, and I want to set expectations realistically in terms of moving this through the nation's banks. Frankly, I think theoretically, it's a good idea. They said we want to get the money to employees as quickly as we can, and we want to keep them connected to those employers for a variety of very good reasons, not the least of which is to keep them connected to their health insurance, which we certainly want to do in the middle of a healthcare crisis, right? So I get that. Yeah. Banks are totally competent to do this, and they want to help. Bankers are, part of our community, particularly our small bankers. They're pillars of our community. They're our soccer coach and den mothers, and they can make this work. But they are also a federally regulated industry. They're like the nuclear energy industry or the aviation industry in terms of the regulatory structure that they have to navigate on a daily basis.
Yeah.
And they also are subject to all kinds of liability. And I can see the class action plaintiffs bars foaming at the mouth on this one. And so they want to make sure they get it right. And they want to make sure that they get 100% of the guarantee, particularly when they lowered the interest rate. Maybe we're getting ahead of ourselves in terms of the details. But that's some of what has happened in the recent past that has made this maybe somewhat less appealing to some lenders out there. Although Garrick and I were talking before you got on, and we both agree that they're, by and large, the lending community is going to be all over this. They want to be used as the conduit to put this out. They want to help.
Yeah, and I want to make it clear that this is the bankers in Arizona and led by you have been just simply fantastic partners in trying to gear up and do everything possible. I mean, the constraint here is to make sure the rules of the road are fair and that this could go as the Treasury Department has advertised. So, I'll just say your members have been off the charts good, and I think one of the goals here in terms of opening it up was to help small businesses to stay connected to the lenders that they're most comfortable with.
Absolutely. They've got to start with their own bank. I would say when you're starting this, if you're a small business, grab the lender list, which is on our website. We'll get it to you to put on your website if you want it. You can get it from SBA. You want the 2020 version. They have the 2019 version on their website, but we got the 2020 version. It's also on the ACA's website. But grab that list and first find out if your bank is on that list. And if it is, then that makes it a lot easier for you and go to that bank. Don't forum shop here because the banks are going to prioritize this for their customers first. There's $350 billion for the whole country, and it is first come, first serve. Mm-hmm. So they're going to serve their customers first. Now, if they find that their bank is not on that list, it becomes a little more difficult. They need to reach out to their bank and find out, are they going to participate in this program? In other words, do they plan on getting certified as an SBA lender right away? If the answer is no, they are going to have to try to find a new bank that'll do this loan for them. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
Yeah, Paul, that's great. That's great advice. And just real quickly, can you just go over the details? My understanding is it's any small business, independent contractors. I mean, it's pretty broad definition.
Yeah, this is a document that you can get from the U.S. Senate Committee on Small Business. It was put out by the ranking member. They're probably going to update it because the Treasury changed the interest rate and they changed the term since they printed this document. But everything else seems to be really good in bullet point form. Before we started the call, I was actually reading the guidance and highlighting it and making notes. But I'm going to read from this so that I can see you and not have to move my mouse. But what types of businesses are eligible for this? Businesses and entities must have been in operation on February 15th, 2020. So that's the first criteria. They're small business concerns as well as any business concern, a 501c3 or a 501c19. So those are the only two nonprofits that are eligible, C3s and C19 veterans organizations. Tribal business concerns described in section 31B2C of the Small Business Act are eligible. They have to have on balance, generally 500 employees or less, or the applicable size standard in number of employees for the NAICS industry system. That's the North American Industry Classification System. So in the hospitality industry, for example, it runs a little higher. But
hospitality, restaurants.
Yeah, in general, it's going to be 500 employees or less. It also applies to individuals who operate a sole proprietorship or as an independent contractor, in other words, a 1099 filer, and eligible self-employed individuals. How does that that's pretty
Yeah.
clear. There's some more there. I don't want to drown you in.
And it's the average. The loan is, I believe, up to 10 million for, it's basically pegged on the 2019 payroll, 2.5 months or something in that range.
That's exactly right, Glenn. You can get up to $10 million. You multiply your employment base. You aggregate your employment base. You subtract out of that any independent contractors that you employ, because they're eligible to apply for this. You can't use them in the payroll calculation for the loan. The loan is derived from that payroll calculation, and you can only go up to $100,000. So if you've got $150,000 of, if you've got some employees that are above that, you've got to subtract down to get to $100,000.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
And once that loan goes out, I believe it's 8 weeks of its payroll, utilities, and rent as the main items, maybe mortgage interest, things like that.
Correct. Mortgage interest and some other corporate interest that had been accrued. I forgot one component of that. You multiply that number once you've gotten to that by 2.5. So it's 2.5 times your average monthly salary at the $100,000 level and below. One other wrinkle here, and this may seem like I'm getting in the weeds a little bit, but I know a lot of your members have already applied for SBA assistance directly to the SBA under the disaster relief program. As I'm reading the guidance, and I just noticed this a few minutes ago, so I encourage your viewers, make sure to double check this. I'm not giving legal advice here.
Yeah.
As I read the guidance, it looks like you can roll that loan into this SBA loan, which is advisable because the interest rate is a lot lower. The SBA 7A interest rate, no, actually, Glenn, it went up. They doubled it today. It's 1%.
1%. Okay. Good to know. Thank you, Paul.
And
Breaking
so they
news
can do
on
that.
the show. That's what we love.
Yeah. And they can deduct from that if they take a forgivable advance. So I think that under that program, a borrower can get a $10,000 forgivable advance.
That's right.
So would they want to roll that loan into that SBA loan, they just subtract the $10,000 that they don't have to repay, and they can add it on there. Now it's in the first, 5 or 6 pages of the guidance. So and small businesses need to make sure they get this right, and don't take my word for it. Read the guidance and have your advisors take a look at it as well. Your accountants, if possible, to make sure you're doing it right. There's not a lot of room for forgiveness. A borrower can only do one of these 7A loans. Can't do two. Can only do one. Program ends June 30th. So in the guidance, it says it advises borrowers to maximize that loan because they can only do one. The uses on the two programs, the uses have to be different. You cannot use the disaster relief loan for the same use that you apply the 7A loan to. So they've got to be a little different. So if you want to refinance with that other loan or something to that effect, you would use it for that. And they're both beneficial. Money's fungible, right? So you can make that work. What else can I answer, my friend?
Paul, thanks for doing this. We know that tomorrow and for the next several days, things are going to be pretty nuts for you. So we really appreciate you doing this. Glenn, I have a few viewer questions to throw at Paul, if that's all right.
Sure.
Paul, who's your favorite all-time Treasury Secretary?
Alexander Hamilton. Thank you for asking.
Glenn, do you want to weigh in on favorite Treasury Secretaries?
Well, if this program goes well, I'll say Secretary Mnuchin.
Okay.
Hope springs eternal, my friend.
Look, all he has to do is deliver what he's done in the movie business. Executive producer of Wonder Woman. If he could replicate that here, he'll go down as my favorite.
I had no idea. But I agree. We need him to succeed.
Paul, is there, other than the U.S., which paper foreign currency do you like the most?
I like Mexico's the most because our dollar sign was derived from their currency, and I think that's very cool.
Glenn, I know you love that answer.
I love it, but I'm going to say the pound.
Glenn likes the pound.
I love the British. It's the neatest. I don't know what the fabric is exactly, but you can really put it in a washer machine, and it's the most durable. It's the most durable currency that I've ever seen. So I love it.
Well, it's back in vogue now with Brexit, so that's good.
True.
I have a lot more pesos on me, but
Paul, it's this kind of conversation, which is why dozens of people tune in every evening. Well, thanks everyone for tuning in. Paul, thanks for your time. I know Glenn and I both appreciate what you do on behalf of industry in this state, and all the best to you and your members at the association.
Well, likewise, and some of our members are mutual, and this is one of the highest regarded chambers in the country. So you guys have been doing a terrific job. You've got good chemistry there. Keep it up, and thanks for having me on.
Thank you, Paul. Thanks for those kind words.
All right, Glenn, we'll catch up with you tomorrow.
All right, thanks.